All right. Hey, Do Racers. So we're back today to talk about the Super Jockey Bot. So this is a really exciting project for us. We've been in the talks with the guy for a while now, and now we have it. So not only do we have it, we've been running it for 6 days. There's a lot for us to be going over today, but not everything. What we discovered initially is that there is quite a bit of learning, some adjustments similar to running your horses on a manual mode. When you put a bot into place, there's a couple different changes that we realized really quickly. So today we're going to be focusing predominantly on what we have learned, what we are doing, and what we expect to see in the coming days. So let me go ahead and share with you what we got going on. All right. So what you should be seeing here, this is just the folder of the downloadable. So the system is pretty straightforward to install. Just download the zip file. We extracted it. There's just a couple things you need to do. For example, you have to have a dedicated browser that you are not using. I use Brave as my default. So for this, I put the bot on Google Chrome.
I actually did the opposite. Yeah, so it works both ways. You're going to be adding a little bit of information to the properties setting in the browser itself. But yeah, you can use either one. They work great.
Perfect. There's the getting started guide. Installation for me probably took between 5 and 10 minutes. Is that about the same for you?
Yeah, I ran into one little issue. Tech support was great, by the way. But that took me all of a minute to figure out what I had done wrong. There was one instance where I needed to restart the computer to make sure a program that we had downloaded was functioning properly. And then I was up and running. So actual physical labor during installation was, a handful of minutes at most.
Excellent. And what was nice about this is we've been doing this for 6 days now. And so in the past 6 days, there has been an update from 3.1 to 3.2. To do the 3.2, the same thing. We just downloaded the file, extract it. The one thing we wanted to grab was there's this settings.json in here. Copy it from the previous settings, move it to the new one. And what that is in the background, you'll see I have 4 horses in the program right here. And you set, as I'll just show, you'll be able to set on the dirt, synthetic, and turf what you're willing to race, how much you're willing to bet on these things. In those settings, after you set them, if there's an update, you of course want those settings to carry over with you so you don't have to redo it. But that was simple as copy and paste.
Yeah, I actually, funny enough, had made an edit to one of my horses in the program in between when I had downloaded the new version and when I got it set up. So even though I copied over my settings.json file, I had missed one of the horses. So I had to reset it up. But as you'll see here in a moment, it takes all of 30 seconds to get a horse added into the program.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now once you have the thing running, the first step you got to do, for me, I had to open up Google Chrome. You got to open Brave. You would run this file. So inside the folder, there is a start windows.bat. I created that as just a desktop shortcut. So once I opened up Google Chrome, I launched that, and the program is this here. This will load the bot, initiate it, and it will open up the 3 browsers. So you'll have D-Race as one, Super Jockey as another, and MetaMask is going to be open on the side. Once you have this thing running and you start the bot, just leave it alone, minimize it, move on. Don't use MetaMask. Don't use anything on the browser that you're running it. You can run into some issues. It is processing constantly in the background. Did you run any?
Yeah. It's important to note that when you first launch it, it's going to ask you to sign into MetaMask. So you're going to have to do that. It's also important to note that at no point during the setup of the bot are you asked to fill in your MetaMask recovery phrase or seed phrase. You're not asked to sign in during the actual installation process. So security wise, everything's set there, but you will have to sign in the first time it launches on any given day. And I typically recommend that you try to refresh that and relaunch it every day if you can. So you'll sign into MetaMask. And then once that happens, it automatically approves races, as we'll see going forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. The security, it was initial concern of mine as well, but it seems pretty straightforward that once you sign it in, everything's just parsing through. So it's as if you're just clicking buttons. So I'm happy with that. Now, another thing to review is we've had 2 very different strategies initially. So Golda for me is relatively new, and within our mutual stable, we do what we call our training. And for the most part, that's 10 races on every single furlong, every single hippodrome, just to try to get a sense of where that horse can perform. Training is the least favorite thing I enjoy. It's tedious, it's expensive. You're losing most of the races, and when you have like 2 or 3 races to go, it takes forever for it to show up. So what was amazing for me is I set Golda to 1 Dirk min, 1 Dirk max, and I hit all of the hippodrome and furlongs that she needed it to get trained on, and I just walked away. And on the high side, I think she did like 55 races in one day, blew through training over the weekend. So that was awesome. Uh, the opposite strategy was Skondert. Skondert is my preferred horse. He wins a lot, he races a lot, and so for him, I just put him in the zone to profit. So Skondert has been kind of paying for Golda's training, but that was my main strategy in the past 6 days. How about you?
Yeah, so I have about a half dozen horses that I'm using in the bot. I started with one, Burra. That's my top horse, and I wanted to get a feel for the bot itself. I wanted to see what the settings did, how easily it jumped in to races. Played around a little bit with whether or not you needed to have 3 or 4 races, which you can see in some of the settings for the bot itself. Played around with a little bit of the gas fees to see if that affected much at all. But for the most part, it's automated. You set it and go. I have, like I said, about a half dozen horses in there. I very quickly realized, and I knew this out the gate, but I was able to prove that there was maybe 2 or 3 horses that were making me money.
Mm-hmm.
The other 3 very quickly proved to basically break even or lose a little bit of money each day. Now we've again only been running it for a handful of days, so and we all know that it's fairly cyclical for the horses in racing. You can have good and bad days, good and bad groups of days. So for me, I have those half dozen, but I'm only running maybe 2, 3, 4 of them at any given time.
Yep. So I just want to share off the change the settings for the global one. So what was nice about this is it does have a multiplier to gas. When I first launched the bot, you will see the MetaMask lion appear or fox appear, whatever that is, and it will go through the bidding to get your contracting process. And so there's no manual confirmations. You don't have to adjust anything. This will know to multiply it each time, and it will attempt. So if you're failing to get in, you could just tweak this. I made minimal changes to this. I think for me, I really only just dropped my minimum. So once there are 3 horses in a race that's qualified for mine, it would then go ahead and log me in. Benefits to this is you don't accidentally become the only horse that shows up at a race that never fills, and you lose that 20 minutes of cool down time.
This is an absolutely amazing feature because on the 1 Dirk Mondays, we lowered it down. Like I think I used it once there was 2 horses there. I think you set it to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to say when you want to join a race is really important because there are times where there's only going to be 5 or 6 horses that join. And the question is, do you want to get in on a 1 Dirk entry fee when there's only 6 horses and you're barely going to win anything? So you just have to decide if that's something that's important for you. It's great for training, not great for turning a profit.
Yeah, agreed. The other thing that was painful for us is that we do a lot of our own analysis. So for us, when I switch over to this, we have a combined spreadsheet that we work on. So we manually data enter every single race that we partake in. So we're up to 6,400 races. And this is already behind. So we're constantly now putting in an hour or 2 hours a day of manual data entry, the horse, the race, the first, second, third position, but all of this is built into our analytical tools. So right now, I think I have seen a 3 to 4x in the amount of races that I do per day, thanks to the bot, which is nice. But as you said, the cyclical nature of it, there's days where even if it was manual, I will lose money for the day. And then there's days that I will just walk away with just bags of Dirk. So what I noticed is the very first day that I launched this thing, I was on a bad cycle. So I went to bed and I think I woke up losing 70 Dirk. So I think if you're using the bot, you need to realize that that cyclical nature is still going to exist. It's not a guaranteed win. Obviously, you're just going into races automatically. So be prepared. Have some Dirk available in your wallet to have a little bit of a buffer. But you're still up right now,
I
aren't you?
I had the opposite. We had like inverse days on day one. I made a ton and I thought, oh, great. Okay, this bot's going to pay for itself really fast. You had the opposite, which was actually a really good thing because it allowed us to recognize, oh, hey, okay, good reminder. You're going to have up and down days. And so as we watched, I think my second day only made about half as much as I made the first day. My third and fourth days had actually lost me money. I was messing around with a few more horses on day 3 and 4. So I'll admit that I added in a few horses to say, well, hey, they're fringe. I knew they were fringe horses. They could only run a couple of tracks and furlongs. See if I could make any money off of them. When your great horse doesn't do great, and then you're also kind of messing around with other horses, you're going to end up losing a little bit of cash on that end.
Yep.
But then you can see here, Ben pulled up one of our other charts where we're just tracking what the bot's been doing on a daily basis with our different horses. These are my half dozen horses that I've got here. And you can see on the 24th, I'm back to being in the green, earning a good amount, and hopefully that'll continue.
Yeah, and as you said, mine's the opposite. You only had 2 red days. So far, I've only had 2 green days. The very, very first 2, 3 days were just absolutely brutal. Golda, again, she was doing training. So she was losing me a lot as she was going through getting everything figured out. Skandert was also having a pretty rough day, but that cycle seemed to be ending. He's winning again, which is nice to see. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the next coming days. There's no reason for me to think that Skandert will not be able to get those numbers up. Now, Naysayer, Donde, those horses of mine, those are much more 1 to 3 track horses. Skandert is about a 8 to 10 track horse, so it's a lot easier for Skandert to find some value. But this is something that I think is going to become really valuable as we run this thing through for another week or so to get a sense of how these numbers balance out.
Did you actually think this was about what you were going to see out of the bot?
I mean, it makes somewhat of a sense. I guess the thing that immediately hit me was there's strategy to it that changed.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that I did is I set everything to a 1 to 4 Dirk spread with Skandert, which I realized quickly that was a bad idea. Normally when we were doing things manually is for Skandert, like 7s and 10s, he likes 8s and 9s too. But when I saw some of his favorite tracks, it didn't matter if it was a 1 or 2 Dirk, 3 Dirk or 4 Dirk. I would just enroll him because it was an opportunity and I was present for it. But what's nice about the bot is I could set it to 3 and 4 Dirk and not care about the 1s and 2s. And I could go to sleep or I could spend time with my family and it'll pick them up, which is really nice. So I think the biggest benefit that I've noticed or the strategy change is that I could start to dump the low, the 1 and 2 Dirks, which I think are really dangerous. And then I could focus on the 3 to 4, where the people that are more veteran horses, it's more reliable. And then the purse is a lot bigger. So as I've been making those shifts, I've seen immediately a change in Skondert's revenue, which was, I should have seen that coming.
Yeah, I had something very similar that I realized pretty early on. The 1 and 2 Dirk, well, the 1 Dirk in particular had to be strategic. You had to only jump into the 1s when the 2s, 3s, and 4s weren't filling.
Mm-hmm.
So certain days, especially obviously on 1 Dirk Mondays, when you've only got single Dirk races, that didn't really play into it. But when you've got other days where you're watching the races periodically throughout the day and you're like, hey, they're not filling up. The 3s and 4s are definitely not filling up. You may actually want to include some 1s because otherwise you might not race at all. And so I put some 1s in there, not all of them, because I didn't want my really good races to only be picking up 1s.
Mm-hmm.
But on some of those tracks where maybe I've been in a slight down streak, or they're not as good as other tracks that I race, I put 1s in there to see what would happen. I had mixed results. I think it's something that we'll continue to play with, but it's been a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, agreed. The other thing that V2 is going to really shed a lot of light on this too, because right now there's one ROI, which is the Dirk. So the
Mm-hmm.
profit per race. So I can see that Skondert right now is the only horse that I have at the moment that is profiting. So that theory, crank on those. But for the horses that are on breaking even, like Naysayer right now at 01, as soon as sharding in experience has some type of yield, those daily challenges, weekly challenges, or whatever events that D-Race is going to do, there is the opportunity to find value. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we learn. So next week, maybe we get a little bit better insight from Jeff. We'll see. But definitely once they release V2, I'm very excited to see if there's going to be other opportunities to benefit for this, because otherwise you're going to need to have a lot of strategy and a lot of horses and some good luck to be able to generate the revenue that you want.
Yeah, I think that's really important to note. There's not just the prize money from the races that in the future is going to add value here. Obviously, the shards from any sort of experience gained with your horse is valuable. But you've also, like you just said, got to look at the size of your stable. This bot doesn't really make sense if you only have 1, 2, 3 average horses. If you've got one good one, you can play around with some other ones. But really what you need is a handful, 3, 4, 5 plus horses that are going to earn you, even if it's just a few Dirk a day. Compounding those together, you'll be able to see value derived from a bot like this. I don't know that you could actually make anything if you had just average horses. So again, the strategy to go out and find a horse, train new horses, find a good horse that can make you money is really important if that's what you're doing in this game. There's obviously other fun things that you can do with the game, but that's a big part of it.
But if you're a part of a racing team, if you're trying to compete in tournaments, if you're trying to get a lot of races down, this thing so far has been just amazing. Like I love walking away. The amount of free time that I have in my life back is incredible. So my wife is a big fan, even because I could just get to just walk away. My computer processes this and not have to do a thing. So
yeah, we still do a lot of data entry, but at the end of the day, we can pick and choose when to do that. We're not actually doing it in live time, trying to get into a race at any given moment, checking constantly on our phones, on our computers to see when the race we want is there. This bot helps do that for you. It can also, as you can speak to, sometimes when you're training and you don't want to keep training, you have to remember to go into that bot and turn that off. But yeah, it can be a really powerful tool to get into those races. We've also seen a major uptick in racing over the last week, and I think that's because the Super Jockey Bot has put out a trial for, I think, about a dozen people to play around with this. He may be doing that again in the near future, so that'll be something to keep an eye out for.
Yep. I just noticed right now the MetaMask just popped up, so it looks like I'll be going into a race. So for good time to see. This is what it's like when you're running the program. You'll just notice that MetaMask is calling for it. It's going to go through. It's going to run all of the bidding right here. So it's going to adjust my gas, closes it out, processes it, and now I see that Donde is in a race. It knows the cooldown is in 22 minutes. Now it only takes it based off of when the race is going to finish. So it knows that in 22 minutes that race is going to finish. If for some reason this hung and Donde did not get into this, you could either shut it all down, restart the bot, or just miss this chance and on the next go. So if you see that there was any issues with it, again, tech support with Super Jockey has been awesome. I had to ping him earlier today because I thought I saw something that was a little bit goofy, but it seemed like just a restart fixed it.
Yeah, it's been great. So let me ask you, what now that we've been doing this for a handful of days, I know I've got my strategy for what I want to see in the next 5 to 7 days. What do you want to see next week? Like, what are you going to be focusing on?
So now that Gold is done and she's no longer doing training, this is great. So I have an analytics in place for that. My main focus is to get the highest profitability that I can pull off on this one. So my strategy with Skondert has adjusted. I think that that's working. Training for me is done. It's going to be all about how do I get a reliable trajectory to an ROI.
Yeah, let's see if you can earn your lunch money back.
Yeah, exactly. What about you? What are you going to be working on?
So for me, I'm going to do something fun with the bot this next week. I've got 2 horses that are unraced. I want to put them both in and just see how many races I can get into. Basically, see if I can blow through their training as fast as possible. So I'm going to have fun. Well, basically entering data for the next week, but seeing where that comes, and hopefully in the second part of this video, we'll be able to give you guys a little more specifics on where our horses landed after a couple weeks, and hopefully be able to possibly even project out ROIs.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it would be really nice for us to be able to definitively lay out, if you're in this kind of strategy, how many horses do you need? What's the PPR you need to have? And just to get a sense, because if you're going to spend the money on this, it's a great bot. It works really well. Again, tech support's solid. The question now comes down to, is your stable going to be able to do it for you?
Yeah. Find out if it's worth it.
Yeah, that's right. And then just another plug is, it looks like we are on for next week with Jeff. So we'll be talking a little bit about some of the things that are coming from D-Race, and we'll be having hopefully a follow-up to this with some good data.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. We'll see you tuned, or stay tuned. We'll talk to you guys soon.